So hi folks, I'm going to go through again, trying to do this live stream to just break out and talk to the community, find out, answer any questions that you have, but then also talk a little bit about my 30 days of code. And also I wanted to give some news topics. So let me throw this link out on Twitter and I will see if anybody wants to join in. So like I said, if you have any questions, throw them in the comment section here below and I'll be happy to kind of go through them. Like I said, I wanted to go through and talk about some of the news updates for this week for data engineers, machine learning engineers, data science, just kind of all around the analytics community. Throwing in this link here. And should get it working. News and questions. Really got to find a way to automate this a little bit better, I'm guessing. So. All right, so here we go. So here's a question. So if I have 14 years experience, can I still learn machine learning? Yes. So for sure, I think that you can. Like I said, if you've watched anything on my channel before, my experience actually how I kind of got into data engineer. I was a front end developer for a while, and I was mostly doing .NET. I had SQL database experience, but mostly it was in VB.NET. I just kind of switched to C#, and I volunteered to get on a project, and I really just kind of dug down. I went through. This was back when there wasn't as much information out there around data engineering, and especially in the Hadoop world. And so I just kind of went through some of the tutorials and some of the other things with like the Hortonworks Sandbox and Cloudera's piece. And a lot of it was just kind of on the job training. That's one of the reasons that I jumped and started making videos with Pluralsight. So I used Pluralsight a lot back when I was a front-end developer. And, back in this time when, like I said, when I was doing the switch, there weren't a lot of courses offered there. And so, I kept asking and talking to them about, hey, doing something for a Pig Latin course. And I didn't really see one. And they were like, well, hey, why don't you make one? You've been developing in Pig for 6 months. You have to know more than when you started. And that's kind of how I started out. Yeah, I mean, and kind of to your point around, okay, what value will I add as a 14-year experience? Yeah, I mean, I think that'll give you, we all kind of start and go through our own journey, right? How we're coming from. So, I mean, you can find advantages to having that 14 years of experience, right? To being able to understand kind of how things go together. Going back to like what I was talking about. I had Java experience like early, like from college, but I didn't have we were writing in Java at the time. And so, had I been fresh out of college or, relatively, junior, it might've been a little bit more of a struggle, but because I had, learned and kind of been through VB.NET for a while, done the switch over to C#, I felt like it made it faster for me to kind of understand and kind of go through Java versus comparing myself to my previous self earlier in my career. But then also, I mean, there's a lot of soft skills and other pieces that you have being at 14 years, and you probably have some processes and some other things that can kind of help. So one of the things that I was talking about here, and I don't know if you got to see the live stream yesterday, it was my first one, but one of the things I've always done is I set aside like 30 minutes to kind of learn something new. So today I've kind of just, I'm continuing on my journey into TensorFlow and kind of learning from that point. So I think that's something that, a practice that you should probably always have, but kind of go through there. And, that can kind of help you because you're probably, you said you're 14 years in, you're probably, my assumption is you're in your career, you have your day job that you're going through. But then you're also, if you want to learn or you want to kind of, transition into a new project or new role, you probably have to kind of do that on the side, right? And so, it's easy to kind of look at it and be like, man, if I didn't have this day job, I could devote 40 hours a week, but that's just not probably practical. And so that's where the 30 minutes a day, some people do an hour. I do 30 minutes. It's a low threshold, but I feel like it's good for me. And sometimes, that 30-minute, just do it on my phone. 30-minute timer goes off, and maybe I want to continue, watching the video that I was watching, or kind of, going through the code and trying to get it to work. But, that's kind of my advice. So, let's see. Here's a question. Core scores for data engineering with an ETL background. So from an ETL background, I think that I don't know. From my perspective, I think that's a core component, because I feel like if you're wanting to jump into a role from a data engineering perspective, especially in the Hadoop world, so maybe if you're looking just from a SQL background, it might be a little bit different. But from my background, especially like when we're talking about Hadoop, big data, or anything like that, ETL is going to be huge in it. Like my premise, like that's where I started out. So I think having those skills gives you a huge opportunity. There are a lot of as far as core skills around that. I think it's going to depend, right, on the role that you're looking at. So like if you have a role in mind, like you can take and kind of look and see what tools they're using. But if not, one of the things that I would do is I would kind of focus on, your training that you're going through, but also specifically kind of looking at some of the tools. And so one of the things, one of the tools that I used was Pig. And I'm not saying that, Pig's the end all be all for it, but if you start looking at some of the ETL tools from that perspective, that'll kind of help you transition those skills a little bit easier, right? Like you might be looking at a roles and it says, hey, I need to be a specific developer and know how to do Spark and write all those Spark jobs. And you can go out and learn those. But then too, like my thinking is like the fastest way for you to probably consume and understand it, and even really kind of bridge that gap, if you're really looking to, make an impact quick, would probably to look at some of those tools that are, specifically around ETL, and understand how those work, because you've got this experience coming from ETL, and it would be maybe easier to kind of jump into it. And like I said, it's all dependent on the role. So let me pop over here and see. So you've had two interviews for data engineers, and they're looking more for a programming background. So data engineer is more about programming, or is it data analysis? It's going to depend on the role. So, I've made a couple videos around it, but, from my perspective, I feel like they put data engineer in this bucket, especially with big data, where, your majority of the time you could be the developer, or you're the administrator too. So it sounds like the positions that you're looking and you're applying for are more of that programming background, like you're saying in your question. So my focus still would kind of go back to some of the ETL, maybe not focus as much, kind of as I was saying. I would know those tools and be able to talk and be able to kind of show those, but probably I would look into spending some time in Spark, right, and spending some time in maybe some Python. Can you elaborate? What does the job description of those roles look like that you were talking about? Did they specifically like pull out certain technologies? Maybe that can help me, give you some more tips there. So while we're going through that, if anybody else has any other questions or there's anything, just let me know. But yeah, I think specifically from the programming perspective, I think it's something that you can still kind of tackle and start to look at from the perspective of, hey, just like I was talking about, how can you go, in the previous question, from 14 years experience, how do you kind of transition into that? It's just going to depend, right? Like I would, once again, focus on the technologies that they're looking for and the skills that they're looking for in the majority of these roles, and be able to take those back and create your own kind of learning path. So it's been something that I've kind of gone through. Hope I've answered your question. If you want me to elaborate any more, if you want to give me more specific examples, I'll definitely keep watching this and kind of try to go into it for you. So Let me see. Is there any other questions? I think I've answered some of those. So I'll talk a little bit while waiting for some more questions to come in. I'll talk a little bit about what I learned today. So like I said, I'm in day 14 of this 30-day challenge that I'm kind of challenged myself to say, hey, get back to kind of learning, really digging into TensorFlow. I've been going through some Pluralsight courses, but also I've got a book, and then I've got a couple of GitHub pages. I showed one of them yesterday, but today I kind of went through and I looked back at some of the things around just how do you score classification models. So I'm really trying to look more for some of the background, because I went through it when I did the machine learning course. So Andrew Ning's machine learning course back at the first of this year through Coursera. But I'm really trying to go back through, because like I understand how to implement some of the models and how to structure the code and everything in TensorFlow. But I'm really trying to focus now on, okay, like, I've gone kind of beyond the hello world, right, with MNest Challenge and some of the other models, but I want to be able to understand, okay, these are some of the reasonings and, some of the more intricacies behind the scenes around it. And like I said, I went through it earlier in the Andrew Ning's Coursera machine learning course, but I really want to double down and really kind of almost a refresher. So some of the things I went through today were like, comparing accuracy, calculating recall, and then F1 and ROC curves. So those are some of the things that I've learned and kind of went through today, just really focusing on classification models, and just kind of going back through. Plan to dive into some code earlier in the week, or I'm sorry, earlier next week, into just building some of these out. But that's kind of my focus. So that's what I did today in my machine learning code. And then let me go back and check as we're waiting in for more questions. And if you don't, if you're watching this live stream later on and you have some questions that obviously I didn't answer because you weren't on live stream, feel free to pop them in the comment section here below, and I'll try to address them, either on the next live stream or for sure in a Big Data Big Questions. So I'm going to talk about a couple things that I saw this week, and if I don't have any more questions, I think we're going to drop off. So this week there was a huge debate on KD. So KD Nuggets, if you're familiar with KD Nuggets, a lot of information, specific to data science, data engineering, and machine learning engineers. But there was a blog post out there, which is what's the best IDE for data science, right? And so specifically to Python. And so it was kind of interesting because these debates always spur like, hey, it's kind of like, tabs versus spaces in the developer world, which I am huge on tabs. It's just so much easier. But I understand, people get passionate, right, about what they like. But I'll read off the top ones that they talked about, and they didn't really put an order to it, but I'll just read them as they came in. So the first one was Atom. And so Atom, if you're, you can get it, I think, off GitHub. And, it's kind of written by the community, but it's really just a text editor. I'm not sure how it qualifies as an IDE, but I'll get to that here in just a second. Jupyter Notebooks. You've heard me, on Twitter talk about it, and also kind of, my thought process on what's going on from that perspective, around, do you use Jupyter Notebooks, or do you use a full-blown IDE or a text editor? PyCharm's the one I have experience with. I've tested out. Rodeo. So Rodeo specific. Well, I guess it's specifically to IDE, and looks like it's an RStudio. It's got some pieces. Spider. Not sure about Spider as well. And those are the only ones listed. So out of all those, I've used Atom, I've used Jupyter Notebooks for sure, and then I've used PyCharm. No experience really with Rodeo or Spider, so I really can't comment too much on those. But I will say, if you check on the comment section on the specific KD Nuggets article, Visual Studio Code, or what is it? The Studio Code. I've got it downloaded, but the Microsoft's version that they open sourced for their code, that was not listed. And that is a full blown IDE. I've played with it, like I said earlier in this video. Having experience in the .NET world. Whenever I downloaded and started playing with that, I liked that a lot. I liked it better than PyCharm, just from my perspective. But the other one that didn't make the list, that nobody, I didn't see in the comment section below. And if we're going to put Atom in there, and I don't know, maybe not Jupyter Notebook, but if we're going to talk about text editors as well, not just full blown IDEs, I don't know why Sublime Text didn't make the list. Sublime Text is one of my favorites. It's really cool, really customizable. I mean, there's so many different things you can do for it. Actually, the reason I tested out Atom was because I had a subscription to Sublime Text, one place where I work, and then when I transitioned either out of that role or maybe I was just working from home. I can't really remember the instance, but I went to look at Atom just because I was like, okay, it's open source. I'll give it a try, right? But no offense to Atom, I'm sure it's changed. This was right when it first came out. But, Sublime Text was just mine, right? Like I went through some courses and went through some other things. So, okay, so that's I've got one more news article, but I see there's another comment coming in. It says, "Hi, Thomas. I had a question that I was faced with an interview. So in an interview, was waiting for a response for you, but oh man, I'm so sorry that I didn't get it fast enough to you. But oh wow, so you got the job. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. That's awesome. So it's a big data developer. So do you mind sharing what some of the technologies that they were asking for? Because I had a similar question earlier, actually in this live stream, where somebody was asking about some of the more programming technology. So was this, so you're saying it's a big data developer development role? What is it Spark, and is it MapReduce? Is it super secret we can't talk about? So as I'm waiting for some responses to come into that, like I said, excited that you were able to get a role. Sorry that I wasn't able to get your question answered quick enough, but hopefully we're going through and getting caught up now. There's another news article that I wanted to talk about today too that I kind of ran across. So this one actually came out. So it was with it being close to the end of the year here, 2019, a lot of 2019 predictions are coming in, so the end of 2018 here, a lot of predictions. So this one is a Forbes article actually talking about the top 10 predictions worldwide. It's based off an IDC article, but I just wanted to kind of pull out some of the things that I think are really important. And, we're all really biased on this channel, right? Like we believe in analytics, and, we believe that data engineers are an amazing role, and that's kind of ushering in all this cool tech and cool things that are kind of pushing us forward globally. So it says that AI solutions will deliver over 52 billion in global market value by 2021. I mean, if you think about that, that's a huge amount. I mean, this kind of shows, I know I've talked about it here on this channel, where I think, that we're not going to see another AI winner, that really AI is kind of pushing forward. But then there's another prediction here too. So AI-enabled user interfaces will replace 1/3 of today's on-screen based apps. So that's by 2022. But if you remember back, I did a video, like I said, I used to be a front-end developer for a while, or web developer, and did the front end, the full stack. But there's some really cool technologies, if you remember, with TensorFlow.js, where that's kind of driving, I believe. I'm not saying that it's going to be TensorFlow.js. It's going to really, be the, end all be all. Could be. Right now, it's in the lead. But this is for those user interfaces and some of those other things. So the big thing I wanted to pull out about these, some of these questions and some of these top 10 predictions, and a lot of them that you'll see here at the end of the year, a lot of them are going to be, AI based. They're going to, be deep learning based, machine learning based, and, data engineers are the ones that are really helping to kind of usher that in, data engineers and data scientists. So I see the response to the question. So, okay. So back to what we were talking about. Once again, congratulations on getting the role. Primarily the tech stack included. So I was asking about some of the questions that they asked for a big data developer in a recent interview here. And so what they were looking for is they were looking for core questions around Java. So that makes sense, right? We see that sometimes. Like I said, I've done some videos where we've talked about, being able to do it, but also it looks like their application stack was Kafka, Pig, Hive. Man, I love that Pig's still making the list right there. So, and then Python, and then Hadoop MapReduce. So pretty cool. So, if you're looking for, like I said, it's specific to the roles that you're looking for. But if you're looking for what some of the questions, what some of the interview stacks are, they're looking for, those kind of questions, right? So MapReduce is still out there, Java's still out there, but their questions, with Python and Hive, and Pig. So, it gives you that ability to kind of be a little bit flexible. MongoDB made the list too, which that's interesting to me that MongoDB made the list. Not that I'm anti MongoDB, I just don't have as much experience with it, but I do see it getting listed, or just having some kind of NoSQL background probably is good. See, one is expected to learn on the job, so you're getting up to speed on. Oh, looks like you were saying the same thing around MongoDB. So learning MongoDB from the MongoDB University website. Cool. Good resources, man. I hope, make sure you let us know how that course kind of works out. Like I said, I don't have as much experience with MongoDB. I've been doing some things with, DynamoDB and HBase and some other pieces, but I haven't specifically seen it. I know it's one of the more popular out there for data engineers. So maybe it's something I'll add to my 30 minutes of code. So once again, man, I'm really excited that you jumped on. I'm really excited that you got a new role, and thanks for sharing your experience here. And like I said, as you go through and learn about MongoDB, man, throw some questions, or throw us some feedback on how it went. It'd be great. It'd be great to know. So excited to see that. So I think that's it for today. So I have a date with my 6-year-old daughter today. So I promised her a straight up video game day. So I have to go and set up our Switch. So we are having a video game day, and we're going to be playing. So I'm glad that everybody was able to join on today. If you're catching this after the fact, I'll start trying to put some times around when I'm going to do these live streams, specifically probably on Saturday and Sunday mornings for sure. But I'll try to put some structure around those. But I like this format, and let me know how you feel. And if you have any questions or anything that you wanted me to try to address in these live streams, let me know too. But thanks again, everyone, and see you again next time.